What's going on YouTube? It is your boy Johnny Pro here, and before I get into this very special documentary slash video, I just want to let y'all know real quick that this video is very sensitive, and I just want to personally say that I 100% tried my absolute best to share this without disrespecting anyone's memory, and that all the scenes, videos, and audio slash audio recordings go to their respective owners, and that they may be disturbing to some viewers. Severe discretion is highly advised, and may this video be a lesson and reminder never to forget the events on September 11th, 2001, and 100% on United Airlines Flight 93. And my thoughts and prayers go to the victims and their families and friends, except for the 19 hijackers. So without further ado, guys, are you ready? Okay, let's roll. Just picture this. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning in September. You are a passenger on an airplane. You put your stuff in the overhead compartment. You sit in your seat and possibly even make a friend just before takeoff. The airplane then makes its way to the runway. The plane experiences a delay due to rush hour traffic, but eventually the plane is cleared to go and takes off about half an hour behind schedule. At first, nothing really seems too much out of the ordinary. But just over 45 minutes into your flight, the unthinkable happens. 4 hijackers armed with knives and a bomb take over the aircraft, stabbing several flight attendants before making their way into the cockpit and killing both pilots. The hijackers then fly the plane intending to crash it into either the White House or the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. However, what if the passengers and crew knew exactly what was going on, and in complete unison fight back against the hijackers to save theirs and other potential lives on the ground? You, your allies, and the hijackers then go to the cockpit fighting for control of the plane, but can't control the plane inverting upside down, traveling nearly 570 miles per hour into an empty field. Well, during the 9/11 attacks, that was the exact case for the 44 occupants on board United Airlines Flight 93. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, United Airlines Flight 93, a domestic scheduled passenger flight, was preparing to fly from Newark International Airport in New Jersey for its destination to San Francisco International Airport in California. The plane in question was a Boeing 757 delivered to United Airlines in June of 1996, having been in service for just over 5 years before this day. The airplane had a capacity of 182 people, but on this day, only 44 people would board this flight. The crew of Flight 93 consisted of 7 people: Captain Jason Dahl, First Officer Leroy Homer, and 5 flight attendants: Lorraine Bay, Wanda Green, Debbie Welsh, Sandra Bradshaw, and Cece Lyles. 37 passengers were also aboard this flight that day. Among them stood 4 men: Saeed Al-Ghamdi, Ahmed Al-Hasnawi, Ahmed Al-Nami, and Ziad Jarrah. All 4 of them boarded between 7:03 and 7:39 a.m., also all sitting in first class. All the passengers and crew officially boarded the plane by 7:48 a.m. The plane was originally scheduled to depart at 8 a.m. and was pushed back just 1 minute behind schedule. But as the plane was making its way toward the runway, there was a huge line of planes getting ready to take off. This caused a whole lot of heavy congestion at the airport. Captain Dahl informs the passengers of a half-hour delay coming their way. Eventually, United Airlines Flight 93 became cleared for takeoff, and at 8:42 a.m., it left the ground, heading for its destination to San Francisco. The passengers on Flight 93 who were sitting next to the right side of the plane's windows got a good view of New York City, primarily the Twin Towers. Little did they know that in just a few minutes, that city would turn into a war zone. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City, crashing between floors 93 to 99. Upon impact, a massive jet fuel fireball engulfed the upper sections of the North Tower. Everyone on board that plane, including hundreds more in the tower, were killed, with over 1,300 more being trapped above the 92nd floor due to all three stairwells being destroyed. Meanwhile, Flight 93 reached its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet at 9:02 a.m. New York City, on the other hand, had every emergency service team rushing towards the World Trade Center site, desperately trying to save as many people as possible and put out the fire. Just a minute later, the unthinkable would happen that made the world stop rotating.
You see now?
Well, I saw the plane come overhead. I happened to be looking southward.
At 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175, another Boeing 767, crashed between the 77th and 85th floors of the South Tower of the World Trade Center. However, one stairway remained passable, allowing 18 people on or above the impact zone to escape alive. People now understood, though, that this wasn't an accident. It was an attack. As a result of all this, air traffic officials began sending out warnings. At 9:24, Ed Bollinger sent the message to Flight 93. The message read, "Beware cockpit intrusion. 2 aircraft hit World Trade Center." The pilots were understandably shocked and in complete disbelief. Dahl then sent the following message. Ed Bollinger, confirm latest message, please. Roughly 3 minutes later, Cleveland air traffic controllers would inform Flight 93 of traffic.
United 93, that traffic figure is 1 o'clock, 12 miles, eastbound 370. Negative contact, we're looking, United 93.
This would be the last transmission heard from Flight 93 before it was hijacked. At 9:28 a.m., the hijackers made their move. It started with Saeed Al-Ghamdi going towards the cockpit and grabbing flight attendant Debbie Welsh, holding her against her will. Al-Hasnawi then revealed the bomb to everyone in the first-class cabin, causing widespread chaos and panic. Al-Nami then grabbed the passengers and started hitting them as he pushed them to the back of the plane. People in the middle-class cabin had no idea what was going on as the frightened first-class cabin ran towards the back. Jarrah then went up to the cockpit. He and the rest of the hijackers then killed the pilots. While the pilots were being attacked, First Officer Leroy Homer courageously sent out a mayday call down to the ground. I will play it now, but be warned, it is very disturbing to hear.
Somebody call Cleveland.
The plane suddenly entered a rapid descent, descending at 685 feet, while the passengers and crew and the hijackers on Flight 93 held on for their lives. Jarrah, however, was able to fix the situation, and 30 seconds after the dive, pulled the plane back up and into the sky again. Everyone was shocked and visibly distraught on what had just happened. But as the passengers and crew looked on, they knew exactly what was going on. The aircraft was now in the complete control of the 4 hijackers armed with box cutters and a bomb. 3 minutes after Flight 93 had officially been hijacked, at 9:31 a.m., the cockpit voice recorder started documenting the final 30 minutes of Flight 93. It began with Jarrah relaying a message to the passengers saying that he was now the captain and there was a bomb on board, telling them to keep remaining seated. But little did he know, he accidentally pressed the wrong button, informing Cleveland air traffic controllers instead. This is what was heard.
Calling Cleveland Center, you're unreadable. Say again slowly.
Here's the captain. I would like to order to remain seated. There's all aboard and going to back to the airport. And I would demand to please remain quiet.
Okay, it's United 93 calling. United 93, understand, have a bomb on board, go ahead.
Not long after, another hijacked commercial plane, American Airlines Flight 77, traveling at nearly 530 miles per hour, crashed into the west side of the Pentagon at 9:37 a.m. in Washington, D.C., the heart of U.S. military operations. Everyone on board that plane, including 125 people in the building, died. 8 minutes later, at 9:45 a.m., Ben Sliney, who was on his first day as the manager for the Federal Aviation Administration, had had enough. Once he saw Flight 77 crash into the Pentagon on news footage, that was the last straw. He ordered the entire U.S. airspace system to be completely shut down. All aircrafts on the ground were prohibited from taking off. All 4,000 plus aircrafts in the air were ordered to land at the nearest airport immediately, and all aircrafts coming inside the U.S. from the outside had to go back to where they came from. With not enough fuel, they would divert to either Mexico or Canada as their only exceptions. Meanwhile, on Flight 93, the passengers and crew made desperate phone calls to their families, friends, colleagues, and anyone else on the ground to help relay information regarding on what has happened on their flight. The aircraft recorded a total of 35 airphone calls and 2 cell phone calls. A total of 10 passengers and 2 crew members were successful at communicating. But once they found out the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the passengers and crew made a tough decision. Following a vote, the passengers and crew decided to fight back. Using hot water containers and a food cart as weapons, the passengers and crew were locked in. Just under half an hour after their plane was hijacked, at 9:57 a.m., the passengers and crew on Flight 93 went to war. It started with the passengers and crew running towards Al-Haznawi, the guy with the bomb. They knocked him to the ground and wrestled him for the bomb. Al-Nami, looking on in complete shock, went to go warn his buddies Saeed and Ziad at what had just happened. After Saeed looked through the window and seen Al-Nami in complete panic, he informed Jara of what was going on, in which Jara exclaimed, "Is there something? A fight?" Then the passengers discovered something. That's right, the bomb was a fake. It was used for the sole purpose to frighten the passengers. With that out of the way, they went running towards the cockpit, but Jara had other plans. He began rocking the plane back and forth in an effort to disrupt the revolt. However, despite Jara's tries and him rocking the plane constantly, the passengers were able to regain their balance and control and continue running towards the cockpit. Al-Nami, now realizing he was in trouble, desperately tried defending himself, but was won against the passengers and crew. Once he was knocked to the ground, and once he was unarmed, Jeremy Glick killed him by snapping his neck. Which, guys, doesn't that feel so good to see in here? The passengers and crew then used the food cart to break the cockpit door. With every budge, the cockpit door was one step closer to breaking down. Ziad looked at Saeed and asked him, "Is that it? Shall I finish it off?" In which Saeed responded, "No, not yet. When they all come, we finish it off." Then a passenger exclaimed, and indeed that passenger was right. If they didn't get into the cockpit and subdue the hijackers, they were going to die. However, the plane had veered off its course to Washington, D.C., and Jara now decided to crash the plane rather than carry on with their mission. The passengers and crew finally broke into the cockpit, and within the next few seconds, it would be a desperate fight for control. The passengers and crew broke into the cockpit and took the hijacker pilot away from steering their plane. They also had a pilot among them who they would at least hope would be capable of flying the plane. People in the middle-class cabin were praying and holding on for their lives, while the rest of the passengers and crew, including the 2 hijackers, fought for control in the cockpit. It was a desperate struggle for all to live, wondering what in the world was going to happen. As time went on, so did the struggle for control in the cockpit. The passengers and crew desperately tried as hard as they could with every ounce of muscle and strength they had to save themselves and everyone else on the plane and potential lives on the ground. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to save the plane. At 10:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 93 crashed into an empty field in Somerset County near the town of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At the time of the crash, United 93 had between 5,500 to 7,000 gallons of fuel remaining, which exploded into a massive fireball. Debris, including the cockpit, spread across 163 acres, with confirmed reports that some of the plane parts actually landed either in or near Indian Lake. The only confirmed witness to the actual crash and the last person to view United 93 while it was airborne was Nevin Lambert, a resident from Stony Creek, Pennsylvania. He would later report that he saw the aircraft in an inverted dive, crashing at a 45-degree angle, and still remembers the day where he saw that plane fly right over his barn and him looking just in time to see the plane nosedive into the empty field in Pennsylvania. Flight 93 actually crashed faster than any other hijacked flight that day. American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower at just about 475 miles per hour, while United Airlines Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower at just over 500 miles per hour, and Flight 77 had crashed into the Pentagon just over 530 miles per hour. Flight 93 impacted the ground at almost 570 miles per hour, which completely blew the plane into smithereens and left it merely unrecognizable. Sadly, despite the passengers and crew's best efforts to retake control of the plane, everyone on board, including the 4 hijackers, perished upon impact. It was a very sad conclusion to Flight 93 and a very sad day for everyone. So now that begs the question, why did all of this have to happen on such a seemingly normal day in 2001? Well, as we all know, on 9/11, there were a total of 19 hijackers, 4 on Flight 93 and 15 others, 5 on each flight, that hit their targets. All 4 planes were cross-country flights, with the first 3 being headed to Los Angeles, with Flight 93, of course, being headed to San Francisco, ensuring that with how much fuel were in the planes would cause more devastating explosions and casualties upon impact. This was all orchestrated by we know who, Osama bin Laden, the founder and leader of the Islamist group Al-Qaeda in 1996. After the attacks, he evaded capture for nearly a decade, often believed to be hiding in the mountainous regions between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Intelligence operations and gathering led the U.S. to Osama bin Laden's location in Abbottabad, Pakistan. On May 2, 2011, President Barack Obama gave the authorization to execute a military operation called Neptune Spear, a raid on bin Laden's compound. Eventually, Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. Navy SEALs, and his body was later buried at sea within 24 hours. Then there was Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind and principal architect of the attacks, who originally devised the plan to use planes as weapons and crash them into U.S. buildings. He evaded capture as well, but was eventually arrested in Rawalpindi, Pakistan in March 2003. Following his arrest, he was transferred to Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp in Cuba, owned by the United States for some of the world's most dangerous terrorists. And as of the time of this recording, he remains detained there on charges related to the 9/11 attacks and is still awaiting trial. Now into this video, guys. I want to set my attention on 4 different men who are most recognized on Flight 93 due to them leading the plan to take control of the plane from the hijackers. First up on our list is Tom Burnett, a businessman from California who was just trying to get home to his wife and 3 daughters after a successful business meeting in New York City the night before. After the attack, he made multiple phone calls to his wife Dina. In their first call, Burnett informs Dina about his plane being hijacked and asks for her to call the authorities. In their second call, Dina, after witnessing what happened on the TV, informs her husband about the attacks on the World Trade Center, in which he responded, "Oh my God, it's a suicide mission." In their third call, Dina Burnett, not realizing this, Tom Burnett was still alive in the air when American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, then informed him of that. In their fourth call, Burnett had stated that they had decided to fight back against the hijackers, in which Dina Burnett responded, "No, sit down, be quiet, be still, and don't draw attention to yourself," in which Burnett responded, "No, if they're going to crash this plane, we're going to do something," in which she asked, "What else can I do?" Burnett responded, "Pray, Dina, just pray." He then ended the call by him saying, "Don't worry. We're going to do something." That would be the last time Dina would ever talk to her husband again. Next up on our list is another considerable favorite when it comes to the term Flight 93. Mark Bingham. At around the same time Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, he called his mother, Alice Hoagland, and said, quote, "Mom, this is Mark Bingham. I just want to tell you I love you. I'm on a flight from Newark to San Francisco, and there are 3 guys on board who have taken over the plane and they say they have a bomb. You believe me, don't you, Mom? She replied, Yes, Mark, I believe you. Who are those guys? The phone paused for just a second, and then the two got disconnected. After they got disconnected, Hoagland turned on the TV and saw the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Bingham's father then told Alice, Call him back. Call him on his cell phone. Tell him he and the passengers and crew need to do whatever they can to try and get control of the plane back. Hoagland called Mark numerous times, but every time the phone went to voicemail, so she left him one. And this was her final conversation with her son.
Mark, this is your mom. The news is that it's been hijacked by terrorists. They are planning to probably use the plane to hit some site on the ground. If you possibly can, try to overpower these guys if you can, because they're hell-bent. Try to call me back if you can. I love you, sweetie. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Next up, we have Jeremy Glick, another considerable face when it comes to the name Flight 93. On that day, when the plane was hijacked, he made a call to his wife Liz, telling her about the hijacking and that there were 3 Iranian-looking men with red bandanas, 2 with wielding knives, and 1 wearing a bomb belt on board. He and Liz exchanged I love you, and towards the end of their conversation, when Glick asked her if they should do the revolt, Liz said you should. He also played a key role in organizing the passengers' response. And last, but certainly not least, we have Todd Beamer, a software salesman from Cranberry, New Jersey. When the plane was hijacked, he attempted calling his wife, but for some reason, the call didn't go through, and was instead connected to a GTE airphone operator, Lisa Jefferson. Lisa Jefferson was able to help him understand what was going on in the outside world with the World Trade Center and the Pentagon being attacked. Once he realized the situation and decided to plan a revolt, he told Lisa, in case I don't make it through this, would you do me a favor and call my wife and my family and tell them how much I love them? He then asked her to recite the Lord's Prayer with him, along with the 23rd Psalm. Both of them said it from start to finish. After they were finished, Todd Beamer put the phone down, but left it connected. He then looked at his allies and said his famous last words.
You ready? Let's roll.
As of today, 24 years later, the 9/11 attacks still remains the deadliest act of terrorism in both U.S. and world history. In total, the 4 plane crashes result in the loss of 2,996 lives, including the hijackers, and left thousands injured. Of those lost, most were civilians, but the numbers also included 343 firefighters, 72 law enforcement officials, and 55 military members. Among the casualties, the oldest victim was 85 years old, while the youngest was a mere 2 years old. 90 countries lost citizens in the attacks. On Flight 93, the ages ranged between 20 to 79 years old, with Diora Bodley being the youngest and Hilda Marston being the oldest. While it has been nearly a quarter of a century, we are sure to never forget the actions of Flight 93. At Ground Zero in New York City, Flight 93 is prescribed with the names of all 40 passengers and crew. Newark International Airport was renamed Newark Liberty International Airport, and a U.S. flag is now yield on the exact same gate Flight 93 departed from in honor and memory of the 40 individuals on board that day. And to top it all off, we have the Flight 93 National Memorial in Somerset County, Pennsylvania. Historic sites include the Tower of Voices, the Wall of Names, and the actual crash site itself, marked with a gold stone. However, the only people that are allowed down there are surviving family members authorized by owners of the memorial. A year after the attacks, all 40 passengers and crew were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, one of the highest civilian awards in the United States. Even Mike Pence spoke in 2017, describing how the passengers and crew saved his life because he was in the Capitol on 9/11. During Ronald Reagan's presidency, in one of his speeches, he said this.
We are Americans.
And on September 11th, 2001, the passengers and crew on United Airlines Flight 93 showed the exact definition on who Americans truly are.